what we ask of our students in terms of what they need to take in order to graduate. We have looked at their daily schedule. Is this the best method for them to attend school? 7 periods every single day, 47 minutes. And we've also looked really closely at student stress and student obligations, getting input from the students. And because of that, you will see some changes in some things as we go through the program this year. It's very important to us that we are responsive to what the students need, we're responsive to what's going on in our country, and we're always ensuring that we're in best practices in terms of the courses that we offer. So when you hear that term art committee, that's what we're talking about. So for many of you, this will be the first time that you've heard the dreaded words high school transcript, because that's going to be something that your students are really going to start to look at and talk about. Probably no 7th or 8th grader has worried about their transcript, but 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders definitely talk about their transcript. So the transcript is what a college is actually going to see. Only high school credit classes will appear on their transcript. So as much as they enjoyed Mr. Dowling's world geography class in 7th grade, a college is not going to know that they took that particular class. What you see are their semester letter grades. That's what a college will see. And you can see the way that it's organized is the most recent classes that they took were first. So it goes 12th grade on down. So we're now looking at high school. How do you, as a student, make the most of your high school years? How will you, as a parent, help your child get the best out of what their high school years should be? So you have to think about what they're going to be thinking about and looking at, and also what colleges are looking at, but also for you as a family, what are you going to do with this particular piece of time? So a high school profile, what your student does in high school, is clearly what the colleges is going to base their admission upon. So obviously one important aspect of that is going to be their academics and their transcript. So they are beginning to build their transcript as 9th graders in this year, and that's something weighty that you really need to talk to them about in terms of the courses that they select and how they do in those particular courses. A college is also going to look at their extracurricular activities. They are building a resume. That's something that they do through the retreat days, something that we help them work on as their advisors, but the activities that they do and the things that they select, they need to be very thoughtful and intentional about doing them. For example, a student that's interested in becoming a veterinarian and they're working on their service learning hours, they want to start putting a picture together of I'm a person that's interested in animals and caring for animals. A student that's interested in government or business is going to have very different service learning experiences. Because remember, what you're doing with these things, you are trying to create a portrait of yourself so a college can see you as a person. Because the college only sees our students on paper at first. The third thing is their character and their letter of recommendations. Your students are going to work with high school teachers. They may have the same teacher for a number of courses or over a number of years. They're going to have an advisor that gets to know them very well. These people are going to be able to write them excellent letters of recommendations. I have seen the letters that teachers have written for their students. They're amazing. The time and energy that goes into them. So your students also going to want to start developing relationships with particular teachers, especially in the area or the discipline that they're interested in, so that that teacher really knows them as a learner and as a person. And lastly, and the scary part, is standardized testing. And yes, they have to submit standardized test scores to their colleges, the SAT and the ACT, and that is an admissions criteria as well. So looking at this from a data perspective, if you look at how colleges weigh these things, what's the most important to a college? I'm just going to let you look at this data, but if you look at what we just talked about, the things that are of importance are clearly their grades, in particular the grades in their college prep courses, their test scores, SAT, ACT, and also the strength of their curriculum, meaning are they planning a program that challenges them and has courses related to what they say that they are interested in and what they're learning. So course advising, which is what we do with them, is very important. So I'm sure you haven't yet studied this, but we have a new 1920 curriculum guide. Every year we have the book. Can you hold the book up here? So this is our exciting new hot off the presses booklet. But this is also available for you online. If you go to On Campus and you go to resources or student resources, it's now the first thing on the On Campus line. You can open it up and every page is there for you to look at. And just a little aside, I suggest that you do this before you start talking to your child about advising, because you will appear to be so knowledgeable, which is great. You know, I noticed that in science they're offering it. So this would be a good thing to look at before you start that conversation. So what's in the curriculum guide? First of all, it has our graduation requirements. It's the same page that's on the back of the sheet that I already spoke about. It has all of our academic policies, which might seem a little dry, but especially as you get into 11th through 12th grade, these are things that you're going to want to know and understand because you can help answer those questions for them. It has our grading scale, and then it has our courses listed by department. We're going to get into that in just a minute when we look at the flow charts. And it has a course description of every single course that we offer. It lists the prerequisites, the co-requisites, what grade level people are eligible to take it. So if your child says, next year I think I want to take AP Biology, you'll be able to say, well, no, actually you haven't completed blah, 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 and you need a blah, blah, blah. So it'll help you, too, when you're helping them with that piece of the process. Okay.
One of the first pages is in the guide, talks about and actually lists the graduation requirements. And this is where we start with advising. Obviously, we're going to start with the end in mind, wanting to make sure that we reach and that your student meets all of the graduation requirements. And so we take them subject by subject, and there has been a couple of changes in this area, and this has come from the ARC committee, as Mrs. Peters described earlier. So students do and are expected to complete 4 credits of math, and most of our students exceed this through their time at Holy Trinity. 4 credits in the English, and of course that has not changed. The English starts earning credit hours in the 9th grade, and so students are expected to take English all 4 years of high school. The first change is in the science and social sciences. Within those 2 departments, it says 3 or 4. And so basically students, instead of having to do 4 credits of each social science and science, they now have to do 7 credits between the 2 subject areas. So for a student, this is really just going to provide a little bit more flexibility and a chance for students to individualize their curriculum. So a student who is more interested in the sciences can take that elective credit that they normally would have attributed to the social science curriculum, and they can take an extra science elective, and vice versa. And this is obviously a very individualized thing, depending on the student. This may or may not affect your child's credit hours. Many of our students end up graduating with 6, 7, 8 credits in each of these areas anyway. But it definitely would be an option for a student, like I said, if they are interested in, this would come into play for a student who does maybe a quiet study all 4 years, or an open elective in junior, senior year. If they start to reduce the number of overall credits, then something like this would come into play, and that they may cut back on the number of credits in one area and load up on the other area. So I can explain that probably more in detail on an individual basis as it applies to your child. But overall, 7 credits between the science and social sciences. We are still dictating what some of those credits need to be in the social sciences. Those have not changed. Students will need to take world civilizations, U.S. history, and government and economics. Okay, so all 3 of those credits are still required. In the sciences, that has changed slightly, although for most students, I think it probably won't change. In the sciences, the requirement is now biology, chemistry, or physics, and an elective. But the vast majority of our students, we will be advising to take biology, chemistry, and physics. Truly, most of our students, college preparatory, colleges are looking for physics. Most of our students really should take physics. Most of our students love physics and will be taking physics. This, again, is more of a transfer option. Students who transfer into Holy Trinity, maybe as a junior, it'll give them a little bit more flexibility. Or a student who truly is interested in maybe a journalism path or an arts path or something that is not a math or science field and is maybe looking at a specific college that does not require physics, that type of thing. But for the majority of our students, we will be advising them biology, chemistry, physics. World language is the same. 3 credits are required, and 2 of them must be consecutive. So students have to get at least to the 2nd level of a language, and then the 3rd one can be 1st level of another language. Although we do advise students, if they're in a 2nd level of a language and they're enjoying it, we do encourage them to continue that language and even to pursue it through, we have all levels of the language, as you'll see in a later slide, all the way through college level in all of our languages. So we do hope that students who are enjoying the language and have an interest and a passion for it, that they continue through proficiency or fluency. We do require 1 credit of fine arts for all high school students, and this must be while in high school. Students still do need to take the health and PE class in the 8th grade. We do count that towards their high school requirements. So our students who are taking HOPE, that is this requirement that does satisfy that 1 credit. Okay, and so students who are currently in 9th grade, who went to Holy Trinity in 8th grade, do have this credit. If you did not go to Holy Trinity in 8th grade, then you either need to take a full credit of PE or varsity letter, which will satisfy a half credit, and then a half a credit of PE while in high school. It's not every year, it's just 1 total credit. And the final requirement, academic requirement for graduation, is a half of a credit of religion. And I do have a slide later that will talk about all of the different religion offerings, because it has expanded this year, so there are more options. And so the total number of credits required is 25. If anybody's comparing, looking at it from last year and this year, the total number of credit hours did go down slightly. One of them is the credit that we took away from the social science and science, and the other 1.5 credits are elective credits. And again, one of the things we're looking at is trying to create a situation for students to allow them some flexibility in their electives, to be able to take a quiet study for more than just 1 year, to be able to take open elective for more than just 1 year. What we're finding is that our students are especially qualified and in later years capable and eager and interested in loading up in very challenging courses, but that ends up requiring too much of their time after school. And nobody goes to college and takes 6 or 7 college courses in a day, and so we wouldn't expect them to do that here at Holy Trinity. And so that just does, it gives them more time in their day to be able to do the work and to take some of the stress and the burden off of their school day. So that's what that did. So it's truly electives. If most students graduate with 32 credits, 30 credits, so this really is a non-issue. But again, I know many questions will come from this change, and so I feel like I need to explain. The 25 credits is more just so that it gives students some more flexibility. And again, it may not apply for your student, two-year student, because most of our Holy Trinity students do graduate with 30 credits, 30 to 32 credits without trying to, just because they start earning credits in 8th grade.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes?
How does that compare to other private college prep and high school?
We did a thorough analysis of over 32 different schools. I'd be happy to share it with you. We were extremely off base, way too high. We were one of the highest number of total number required, as well as individual subject area. So we were trying to be more in line with other college preparatory schools. But yeah, Mrs. Bell actually has all of the, she chaired that committee, and I'm sure she'd be happy to share with you. The other small change we made was the service learning adjustment, and this is again just for graduation, okay? Many of our students do many, many hours, and that's awesome. We want to encourage our students to do service learning above and beyond the requirement. But this is an initiative from Chaplain Jared. Primarily, one of the things that he would like to see is that students are truly doing the service for the passion and interest of the spirit of service. And he has some ideas and would like to work on the program. And so to do that, the Bright Futures requirement is 100 hours. And so he'd like to bring it more in line with that. And so that will allow him to be able to do some more school-based initiatives. It makes it a little bit more attainable for the students to be able to do some of the projects that he has ideas to do. So. The other change that came from the art committee was a change to the grading scale. It's very minor change, but I can see where it might feel a little bit major. The change that is up there is that there is no longer an A+ distinction on the grading scale. One of the rumors that quickly circulated was that we did away with the weighted scale, which is not true. There's still full weights applied to the GPA. So the maximum GPA that a student can earn is a 5.0 for AP classes, okay? So the weighted is still there. It's just that the A+ is no longer a distinction. So we used to be on a 4.33 scale. So a student for an A+ would earn a 4.33. It was an inflated GPA scale. It did not align with colleges. It did not align with any scholarship organizations, and students were forced to recalculate or to allow the colleges to recalculate their GPA, and it just made for a very confusing system. Colleges don't run on a 4.33 scale, and so even the Common App is not 4.33. It just wasn't a user-friendly GPA scale. So this truly was for consistency and transparency. The other issue that we found is that students were feeling as though they had a higher GPA and that they were falling into certain categories because of the reported GPA that they were given from Holy Trinity, when in fact it was an inflated GPA because that's not the GPA that colleges were using. So this is truly a more representative GPA. It's one that colleges will look at and validate, understanding that colleges recalculate their own GPAs for admission anyway. Yes? Sure, good question. We will start applying this for at the end of this year, so for next year. And so there will be information on the transcript, very clearly marked that we made this change. They're going to talk about that a lot more in detail at that meeting. But it will definitely be clearly marked, and they are actually going to, a rising senior? Yes. They're going to do their transcripts differently. Okay. So we actually studied, just for fun, we did process valedictorian and salutatorian lists. I don't know if anyone's interested. We were. Just to see what would happen. With a very, very, very tiny, small exception, the lists were exactly the same. So, just for fun. So it really had very little, for those of you who have students who are at that level, that are really achieving, how much stress and ruling anxiety can go into that A+ at times. And so to understand that it had very little to no impact on the ultimate GPA and standing, I think might, as a parent, help breathe a sigh of relief. Personally, I would, to know that that is true, and it was still, it was a non-issue, and now that that piece of it is gone, but it will still be, the same. So anyway, they'll continue to look at it over the years, because we are very interested as to what the impact will be. Another one of the things we talked a lot about, this came from the student stress group and the course selection group, or the credit group, is one of the things is that we are sensing an overwhelming feeling that students are feeling pressure to take more and more and more, and do more and more and more. And one of the areas is with AP. I know students are constantly saying, well, I have to do because my friend's doing, or I feel behind. I can't tell you how many times I have students come in and say, I'm behind already, and they're in 10th grade, and they're not behind at all, but they feel behind, so it's real. And so one of the things that as advisors and as a group we worked on was to publish an AP enrollment philosophy. One of the, when we did research through the ARC committee, one of the things we found is that many schools have rules or policies restricting AP enrollment. So something like you're only allowed to take, 2 APs per year, or 1 AP in 9th grade, 2 APs in 10th. You're only allowed to do this. And we just didn't feel like as a school that was appropriate for us. But we instead chose to publish a philosophy, that would just be more of a guideline, something to communicate to colleges that this is what, in general, our students do. And we did research on, looking at the past 5 to 8 years, averages of how many students, or how many AP classes our students took, and that's how we came up with this philosophy. And so I highlighted the last part because I think it's the most, has the most power, most powerful kick, and it's the truth. You want me to read it to you? No? Okay. Good, because my mouth is, yeah.
So, kind of listening to this, I hope no one thinks they'll just say, hey, guess what, we're going to change all of these things. Because I know when you hear it, it's a little bit like, oh, but...
Did I scare him? Is that what you
No, I don't think you were scared. I was just thinking about I think, especially in response to your question, a lot of time and a lot of thought went into all of this. And when we were finished, we made our recommendations to Mrs. G, head of the school, and then we presented our recommendations to Dr. Cobb, who then presented them to the board. So this wasn't us just thinking, oh, we'll do this. And in each of the committees that looked at all of these things, there were representatives from the faculty, from our offices, we had everybody's involvement in really looking at what's best for the students overall. When Mrs. Ramos was talking about the reduction in the number of electives, so if I have a student who's taking 5 heavy-duty classes, and that student thinks, okay, I need to meet all these elective credits, they don't have the flexibility to take an open elective, which is a not-for-credit class, nor do they have the opportunity to take a quiet study. So what we're trying to do is honor the fact that they have something that they're passionate about, classes that they really want to take, that they care about, and we're trying to give them a little breathing room in the other requirements that we put on them. So we're not really reducing the requirements in any way. What we're doing is, what we're known for is individualizing and allowing them some space to really focus in on what they need to take, which is what colleges are going to look at anyway. Okay, where did the little Okay, so let's talk about, now that we did all that scary stuff, let's talk about what 9th graders actually need to take. So a 9th grader is really starting to look at, okay, this is high school, this is serious. So what are my core courses that I need to take? There is room for 2 electives when we consider that our 9th graders are either starting their foreign language or are going to be taking the 2nd year of their language. And this is the time for them to start thinking about, what am I interested in? When I do my advising meetings with the students, I say, okay, what are you excited about? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Usually they get really pale because they're in the 8th grade, but some of them have ideas or things that they're thinking about. We try and encourage them to take their religion class in the 9th grade. One, it's great to, whenever you have requirements, you always want to get your requirements out of the way. The religion classes open into 9th and 10th graders, our semester classes, so they can get that done. For our more active students, they can pair that with a PE class, which is a nice transition into high school, or they can pair that with a semester of quiet study, which is a great thing for 9th graders to do as they're transitioning into the rigor of high school classes. So, and we also want them to, a great time also to take a look at getting their fine art requirement out of the way. When you look at the curriculum guide, you will see that many of the electives are offered to 10th through 12th graders. So you can say, hey, I know you're interested in taking, you think you might want to take anatomy and physiology, or you might want to take microbiology, but let's work on getting those core requirements out of the way. All right, so 10th graders, okay, so we're going to step it up a little bit. So a 10th grade schedule is going to be a little more rigorous. A 10th grader is probably going to take an AP class, at least one of them. 10th graders are now going to be looking at, do I want to take a science elective or a social science elective? Do I want to work on my requirements? And again, these discussions are best sitting down with your advisor, talking about the options and looking at that path. 10th graders, again, have room for those electives. Again, special interest. Do you want to take an academic elective? Have you finished your fine art requirement? Do you want to take quiet study? Have you finished your religion? So there's a lot of similarity between the 9th and the 10th grade year, with that 10th grade year just having a bit more rigor and maybe starting to specialize a little bit. So every year we like to offer new courses. You know, it's great to be able to have teachers say, hey, I really wanted to teach this. I always wanted to teach this. So here's a look at what we'll be offering next year. I'm not going to read them all to you. If you have a question about a particular class, please raise your hand and ask, and you're welcome to take a snapshot of the slide if you would like to.
Could some of those be paired then with the half credit of religion and then the other semester being philosophy or
Absolutely.
is that the idea?
And for a 9th grader in particular, let's say you have a 9th grader that decides, hey, I want to take the Cross of Christ. I want to get my religion requirement out of the way. That's a semester class. So they could pair that with ethics if that was something they were really interested in studying, which would be a whole credit of religion. Or they could pair that with quiet study or PE, depending upon the person. That's how I would advise my 9th graders. I would encourage them to take either ethics or the Cross of Christ, depending if they wanted to get that out of the way. So yes.
It will depend on the periods that they end up being scheduled.
Right.
We don't know that yet. It also depends on, you mentioned philosophy. Some of these 1 credit classes are not going to be available to 9th grade. They'd be more 10th through 12th grade elective options. But yes.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the flow charts, and I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but this will give you an idea for where is my child now and where is my child headed. One thing I do want to say is there are lines between, that's exciting, here we go. There are all these buttons on here, so it's very fun. So there are lines between, you see the college prep classes, honors and AP classes, and electives. The line is a line that can be crossed. When a student ends up in a college prep class or an honors class or an AP class because of the work they are doing with their current teacher. When you look at the curriculum guide for many of the classes, it says placement in this class requires 80% test score or 85% this or 90% something. So that's, and rather than looking at the row and thinking, okay, we're going here and here, each year you're going to receive a recommendation from your teacher. And when your students start looking at the course request, there will be recommendations for their teachers based on the work that you have done this year. This is the class where I think you will be most successful next year. So if you find, like say for example, I had a student, an 8th grader in Algebra 1 honors, that student's going to go to Geometry 1 honors. My 8th grader in Algebra 1 is probably going to go to Geometry. And And you can see that we even have math electives. Who knew? Math electives, wow. And once again, you're welcome to take pictures of the slides if you want to, but these are also all in the curriculum guide. So for English, our 7th graders all start off in 7th grade advanced English, and the first break point is whether they go into regular English or advanced English in the 8th grade, and then we continue from there. Most 9th graders will take English 1 or English 1 honors. You want to talk for a couple minutes about 10th grade?
Sure. In 10th grade, they have, we have English 2 honors. We no longer will have the college preparatory English option. We dropped that in the 10th grade. So 10th grade is English 2 honors, and the majority of 10th graders will take that class. It's a literature-based course and still has the vocabulary. They still do the springboard curriculum and the grammar, of course, and all of the elements that you're used to in your English 1 honors course, as well as English 1. There's also an AP capstone seminar course option, and this would be one of the areas that a 10th grader could challenge themselves with a college level course. AP Capstone Seminar is the first course in a 2 course program, and it is a very unique style course from the College Board that is really a research-based class. Students will be learning how to do college level research. There's a ton of writing in the course. In addition to research-based writing, they're going to be learning the elements of presentation. They'll be putting together putting together their own presentation and delivering it. They'll be videotaped and evaluated on that presentation. They're also working and learning collaboration skills, and that's one of the elements that they are evaluated on. And so there's a certain element of this that is group work. And so if your child really hates group work, sometimes they do steer away from the class, to be honest, because we can't avoid it. It is part of the course. So it is not a traditional English class. So if your child is an avid reader and loves their literature, there isn't any of the literature in this class, but it is definitely a wonderful research opportunity. And you certainly could talk with your child. You can have your child talk to their teacher about the class to see if it's right for them. It is at the college level though, so you want to make sure that they're ready for it and excited about it. The second course in the program is called AP Capstone Research, and is an independent research project opportunity, and it is not an English class for the students. So it would be considered an elective for them. And I think it's probably best described as a college level research thesis. Okay. Oh, and they don't have to do that second class if they don't want to. Although I don't know why they wouldn't. They don't have to.
So when looking at recommendations, the AP Capstone would be a class that your current 9th graders would be recommended for when they start looking at their course requests. If that's something that they say, oh gosh, I really think I want to take that, that would be a conversation for them to have with their current English teacher and their advisor. Okay, so then science and technology. Okay, so notice that the technology, our computer and engineering classes are also part of the science department. So again, 7th graders start off with life science and go to physical science. And notice we still have biology, chemistry, physics, just like we discussed, and then science elective. Social studies. 9th graders will be taking world civilizations or world civilizations honors. And notice that we have space for elective, and as Mrs. Ramos said, everyone's still going to take world civilizations, AP US history, then, or US history, and then Gov.
This is an area that a rising 10th grader, much like the English, if you're looking for a subject area that your child will challenge themselves in, this is another one where they might take that first AP or another AP class. It would be the social sciences. And there are a few AP options in there, One of them is AP Human Geography. A lot of times students might, it gets a reputation of being an easy AP, and I think that's because it's more of an introductory AP class, primarily because it is, it's not an easy AP. It's college level reading, college level writing, college level testing, but probably the content is just a little bit less quantity over the course of the year, and the style of writing that is required is not quite as complex as some of the other history AP classes that they require of the students. But it is still college level, and the students are required to know a lot of material, but it's a great class. So AP Human Geography is a popular one for students in 10th grade as an elective. Another one option would be AP World History or AP European History. And AP World History is being redesigned this year, so you may hear a little bit about that. They're going to cut out a lot of the quite a bit of world history, actually. It was like 2000 something. Yeah.
It's called AP Modern. It starts at 1500.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller bite than it used to be.
Right. And they're also adding the religions into it, so that's interesting. So anyway, hopefully that'll make it a more interesting and more palatable class for students. And so that's also an option, and then the European history as well. And then for 9th grade, I know that there were some 9th graders this year that took AP Human Geography that were recommended for the class. Understanding that was not a normal track for students. The social science department, now that we are offering AP World next year, would prefer that students in 9th grade take the AP World History class instead of the World Civilizations. So instead of the AP Human Geography, that was never really a good option for a 9th grade student because they would then have to take the AP World History in 10th grade anyway. They would like for them to go ahead and do the AP World History in 9th grade. Again, this is looking for a student who's ready for college level reading, writing, and testing in the 9th grade, which is not everybody, but this will be carefully recommended for students, but wanted to make sure that that was clear.
And we have history recommendations already popping up, and I've seen a couple of those. So again, for 9th grade, World Civ Honors, maybe a few AP World. For AP classes, you often hear the history classes as being the first place to jump in. That's not necessarily for everybody. If you have a child that does not like history or enjoy history, when we were talking about that AP philosophy, that is not the place for them to start. So that's something that you want to be, again, that's an advising decision. You really want to be mindful of where do I want to really take on that challenging class. To take a challenging class, that should be in a discipline that you're already passionate about or that you already love. So if your child has gone through 2 years of a year of geography or a year of history, I really don't like history, I don't enjoy it, that's not the place where you want to take a very challenging class. Okay, so religion classes, again, a semester or half credit required for graduation. So ethics is the class that we traditionally offer. It's Christian ethics and morality. That's the first one. This class is offered for 10th through 12th graders. If you have a 10th grader, world religions through film, that's a class that many students enjoy. Ancient Greece and Rome, that's also primarily 10th through 12th graders, although a 9th grader that had particular passion for Greek and Roman history could consider taking that class. And that's, again, a full year class, so world religion through film, full year, ancient Greece and Rome, full year. Spirituality and music is a great class because it fulfills 2 requirements. You can get your religion requirement, no? Never mind, I'm wrong. Happens. Okay, so either you can count it for your fine art credit or your religion credit, yeah? Or your social studies. Okay. So religion and finance. Okay. Now that I've totally confused everyone, let me start again. So if you decide to take spirituality and music, it can count as a social studies elective or your fine art credit and meet your religion requirement. Okay? All right, and our new elective, the Cross of Christ, the Christian Theology, half credit elective. Okay? Just FYI, and we'll talk about summer a little bit later, We usually offer ethics during the summer. So for students who have, I don't know when I'm going to fit that in, I want to take all year-long classes, that's an option as well. Okay. Then world languages. Notice that we offer Spanish, French, and Latin all the way to the AP level. And we have an interesting Spanish elective, Spanish language and film as well. Once again, graduation requirement, 2 consecutive years in the language, and 3 years of a language to graduate. So if I've taken Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, the hope is that I would take Spanish 3, but I could take Latin 1 or French 1, and I'd have met my graduation requirement. New discipline for many of our students, because this is not something that we're really exposed to in the junior high, is journalism and mass media. So some of our 8th graders have been recommended into yearbook, but this, for 9th and 10th graders, a 9th grader can start off taking Introduction to Journalism, and you can see that that could branch into yearbook or broadcast or newspaper, and you can see how the fine arts classes relate or feed into that as well. So if you have a 9th grader that's just dying to be on broadcast, you're going to say, okay, then you need to take Introduction to Journalism, because that's where everybody's going to start with this department. So if you have a rising 10th grader that's done that already, you can see they could go to yearbook or broadcast or newspaper. That would be their option to stay in this department. So fine arts, remember 1 credit in fine arts is required for graduation. So our 7th and 8th graders have probably taken art survey or art survey advanced. So they're going to be if they've been in advanced art, they're going to be recommended for one of these classes. That's something you could start in ceramics 1 if you have no background in high school. That's something you want to do. You could do computer graphics, you could do photography, you could do introduction to art and design. So any of those would be a great fine art elective to get started. And then performing arts. Okay. So for acting, there is the high school introduction to acting class. So a 9th grader that's interested is going to take that class. There's also advanced acting, which students would have to be recommended for, and musical theater, which students would be recommended for. We have all levels of orchestra, band, and choir. You can see them listed. And then there's that spirituality music class that we won't talk about again.
You're right. That's wrong.
Okay. And then lastly, personal and physical development. So we placed quiet study with this particular group because it is a personal development, but then students in the high school can take weight training. After having completed weight training or being recommended for it, they can take advanced weight training. Then if they enjoy team sports and like that, intramural sports is a great class for them to take in the high school in PE, or if they want to specialize in basketball, tennis, and football, those are the classes that we'll offer next year.
Okay, so we have a few different special diplomas to just briefly touch on tonight. The first is the AP Capstone Diploma, and so we wanted to get this information to you. It's a little bit early to really dive deep into it, but I just want you to know that they're out there. You'll start hearing a little bit about them. Chances are your children will come home and say, I'm going to get the Global Citizenship Diploma. You're going to be like, great, what is it? So I just kind of want you to know what it is and a little bit about it so you can be a little bit, know what they're talking about when they say they're going to do this. The AP Capstone Diploma actually isn't from Holy Trinity. This is from the College Board. They do have to take both of the AP Capstone courses that I described earlier when we talked about the English curriculum. In addition to that, they have to take 4 other AP classes, and they have to earn a certain 3 or higher on the exam. And then the AP College Board will give them this AP Capstone Diploma distinction, and it's awarded to them. Usually this happens way after they apply and get accepted to college. Sometimes it happens before, it depends on the student. So when they say, oh, it's going to help me get into college, sure, maybe, because you're doing these things ahead of time and you're taking AP classes and you're showing rigor on your transcript and things, but the actual diploma itself, unless you are a student that did everything way ahead of time and earned it, you know, in junior year, probably not going to get you into college, and even then, you know. But that's probably not the reason to do it. You should do it because you enjoy the subject area. You should do it because you are enjoying the research and the College Board actually has a lot of other distinctions that they will bestow upon students who are active in the AP program, such as AP Scholar with Honor, AP Scholar with Distinction. You know, for students who are active in the program and are doing well on the AP exams, they will, you know, also bestow other distinctions and honors upon them. So they don't have to just do the diploma, but the diploma is a nice perk for doing and participating in the program and finishing and following through. So the Global Citizenship and the STEAM Diploma are Holy Trinity diplomas that we have developed internally, and they are ways to frame, for a student to frame their high school experience. They are two separate diplomas. Most students, if they're going to do it, they will choose one, most students. And they choose it because it's a particular interest area for them. And if you picked up the handouts, there's basically a checklist. So the green one is the STEAM, and I'll just hold it up just to reference, but there's a checklist of coursework that they need to complete as part of the diploma, front and back. And then there are other co-curricular requirements, you know, clubs, activities, things that they need to do. And then they also usually need to do either a research requirement or internship. For the global citizenship, maybe a study abroad or an internship or something like that. So some sort of capstone type experience to round out their program of study. So students this is a great program for students who are interested, like I said, in a particular area. It gives them a framework to follow. And so if you have a student who's particularly interested in the humanities, who's probably going to take, you know, when I was describing those AP history electives, you were like, oh yeah, those are definitely my kid. And I was talking about the languages, you know, you should definitely encourage them to go on. You're like, oh yeah, I don't have to encourage them. They love it, they're gonna go on. Then pick up the global citizenship one, because they'll probably end up doing all of those classes without trying, you know? And then it's just about them encouraging them to push themselves a little bit further and to do some of the extra things on the back, which will help to make for a more solid resume. It's going to help to round out their Holy Trinity experience, their high school experience, and yes, in that case, it will definitely help them to present a more well-rounded resume, a well-rounded application, and that will help them get into college. But in terms of the diplomas helping them get into college, you know, they don't get the Holy Trinity diploma. They're not awarded that until they graduate either. So, you know, I definitely want to encourage students to do them if they fit their interests, but I really don't, I don't like to see students change their interests to fit the diploma. Fair enough? Okay. Okay, so we've talked a lot about classes, and students will be making course requests, and what that does is that gives the administration, it tells us what classes, how many sections we need of classes, what the interest is. For a lot of these different electives, we have no idea if we're gonna need one section or 5, right? Obviously we can't do exactly what, but we'll try, we really try. We're a school that definitely wants to meet the needs of our students. So students will start making course requests. We'll show them how to do it in the system. They'll do it through on campus. It's a new program, or a new interface for them, but it's very user-friendly. We learned it pretty quickly over winter break ourselves. It opens for them on their retreat day. It is not a first-come, first-served thing, so don't stress. They just log in, they make their course requests, and it closes at a certain time and a certain day. These are the dates. It closes for the current freshmen on the 25th and the current 8th graders on the 31st. I left this in the program. This is one of the presentations we use with the students, but I left it in because I wanted you to see what it looks like. So So on the left, it shows available courses, and each of those is like a drop down. And the program knows what classes are available for your child based on their grade level. So they only have, you know, for English, it'll just say, if you're going into 9th grade, it'll say English 1, English 1 honors. And so, and then at the bottom right, if a teacher's made a recommendation for them, all those recommendations will be there. So that it communicates to your child what their teachers think they should think. They don't have to listen. Yes, they do. I mean, like, no, I mean, like, if a teacher says you should take AP World History, and you don't want to take AP World History, you want to take World Civ Honors, you don't have to do the AP World History. That's what I meant.
And that will actually happen with some of the 8th graders. I was looking at them today, and for some of them it says World Civ Honors, AP History, AP World. So that doesn't mean they have to take both of those. That means my teacher thinks I would do fine in either of these classes. So that's why they're recommendations.
Okay, we're almost done, I promise. One of the handouts that you received was a testing timeline, and this just kind of outlines what's ahead. 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students will continue to take the PSAT every year in October. We really recommend that the first experience with the SAT and the ACT happens in the spring of the junior year. There are only a few exceptions to that, and those would be on an individual basis. But in general, please, SAT, ACT, spring of the junior year. And we do a practice ACT with the students during the spring retreat day during their sophomore year. They just finished. They were really, really happy with us. We gave them snacks, though. A lot of them. All right. This summer, we have an ethics class, as Mrs. Peters said. The dates are on the screen. You might want to take a picture of this one. I don't even think this is out yet. This is hot off the press.
And one thing about this class, do not think, oh, we can go the 10th through the 14th, but we're going to be on vacation the 17th to 21st. No. Missing a day of this class is like missing a week. In fact, in the past we said if you miss, you're only allowed to miss 1 day for extreme illness or issue. Because you remember you're getting a half of the credit for this month of class. So look at your summer schedule. If they can be there for every single day, then this is a good option for you. If not, this is not something they should do. And that's a lot of class in a short amount of time.
But it's Chaplain Jared, and he's pretty fun. Funny.
And check your furniture.
Check.
Oh boy, everyone's favorite, math lab. Just in case you don't know, math lab is like the gym.
Yeah, it's a gym membership.
Yeah, we call math lab a gym membership.
Okay, you can sign up if you want to have a June membership or a July membership. You can have, you'll have an assessment. You'll have an assessment at the beginning of the term. They'll tell you what your goals are, what you need to work on, and then you can decide how you want to work on it. They get a subscription to a program that we use. You can tell them you're going every single day for all 4 hours, or you're going to go twice a week, or you can work that out individually for the subscription time.
For those who I've met with, and we've started, we talked about like using Khan Academy and incentivizing it and all of that. This is a way to, you know, give them structured time to do their Khan Academy for PSAT prep.
And they have a math instructor that will be there to answer the questions that you and I probably can't answer anymore.
Obviously, you would put them on Khan Academy if you're doing this, but still. The way to get them to go do. That's correct. Sorry. Yes, probably not.
I was actually
For Kate, yeah, okay, sure.
I'm like, stop.
So by this time of the night, you can probably relate to the parents on this particular slide. So we decided to do a joking slide to talk about this, but one thing that we're very aware of is stress levels. If you look at our students and if you read any article in a popular magazine or a newspaper, you're laughing, I'm laughing at the thing. Okay. But stress, student stress, high school students, junior high students, college students, is truly at an all-time high. So this is another thing, both of us work with students who come and tell them that they are stressed. I think if you're going to do one thing this summer, whether you have a student going into 9th grade or a student going into 10th grade, what techniques is your student using for stress management? Because that is something that they tend to neglect. If I'm going, they have to have stress management techniques. One thing I do with my students when they come talk to me, we have a little card and we write their stress management techniques on their card so they can use them and follow the steps. And believe it or not, they work. They will come in, they'll look at me first like I'm a crazy person, but then they'll come back in a week or so and say, you're right, it works. So if you don't have many stress management techniques that they can pull out of their pocket to use, that's something they need to develop while they're under your care, while they're in your home, because they're going to need them when they're on their own in college.
Step one is develop them yourself.
Yes.
Find your own or rediscover your own, and then work on them.
There's nothing more humiliating than telling an 8th grader how to manage their stress when you realize that you know all the stuff that you're not doing.
Yeah.
So it's good practice for you too. If you came in a little toward the end, you probably didn't get to pick out our handouts, so please do that before you go. And question?
Do you offer any AP courses in the summer?
No.
No.
Any other courses in the summer? Recital too?
Just our microterms, and we will have microterms. We don't know what we're offering, but there will be no microterm that last week. And that, as you all know, we have the summer bulletin that talks about summer camp and those things. So what we offer besides ethics and the microterm, that'll be up there. Good question. We forgot that slide. Thank you, Shirley. All right, so we'll be here for a few minutes for questions. Thank you all for listening to us. We know that was really lengthy, and please come up and get the handouts if you didn't get them. Thank you so much for coming.